Today we're looking at how 3% hydrogen peroxide can help your plants thrive.
And disease prevention, you may already have one bottle that can handle several of those jobs. Most gardeners see 3% hydrogen peroxide as first aid, but experienced
all these
growers
fancy
use
chemicals,
it very differently.
but the simple solution
The real
is
secret
often
isn't
the best
bottle.
one.
It's knowing when it actually earns a place in your garden. Let's start where many plant problems begin, the roots. Most gardeners think this $1 brown bottle belongs in the medicine cabinet. Professional growers are more likely to keep it near the potting bench, not because it's a miracle product, because one inexpensive bottle can help with far more garden jobs than most people realize when it's used correctly. Today you'll see 20 practical examples, and the first one starts somewhere most gardeners almost never look, below the soil. Here's the first mistake most gardeners make. They think hydrogen peroxide is simply a disinfectant. Professional growers usually think about it very differently. To them, it's one inexpensive tool that fits into dozens of routine gardening jobs, from healthier roots to cleaner equipment and better seed starting. That's exactly how this video is organized, not by random tips. By the same workflow many experienced growers already follow. There's one important limitation right from the beginning. More is not better. Hydrogen peroxide isn't suitable for every plant, every problem, or every situation. Always follow the dilution guidance on the product you're using. Test cautiously when appropriate, and watch how your plants respond instead of assuming stronger applications produce better results. If you already keep separate products for sanitizing containers, cleaning garden tools, or preparing seeds, some of today's uses may help reduce those purchases. We'll point out where that makes sense.
By simply
where it
correcting the
doesn't,
drainage
and
and
what results to
providing
watch
proper
for after
root
each
care,
application.
this
Here's
plant
something
was
many
able to
home gardeners
recover
never hear.
completely,
A struggling
resulting in
plant
the
isn't
lush
always asking for
foliage
more
you see
fertilizer.
on the right.
Very often it's asking for healthier roots. Professional growers usually check below the soil before they add anything else, because root problems often appear long before the leaves reveal what's really happening. That's why the first 4 hacks all begin underground. The first use is helping manage early root rot conditions. If you slide a struggling plant from its pot and see roots that are turning brown, soft or mushy instead of firm and light-colored, the problem may involve poor drainage and unhealthy root conditions. Hydrogen peroxide is not a cure for severe root rot, and it cannot repair roots that have already died. What it may do, when used appropriately and according to the product's directions, is become part of an early response while you also improve drainage and remove damaged roots. One useful sign to watch for over the following days is whether new root tips begin appearing white and firm rather than continuing to darken. If the soil remains constantly waterlogged, however, no bottle will solve the underlying problem. Fixing drainage is still essential. Used this way, hydrogen peroxide may reduce the need to immediately purchase a separate root zone treatment for every mild case. Every gardener has opened a packet of seeds and wondered whether the seeds were old.
On the left, we see
Sometimes the
uneven
bigger problem is
germination,
everything
resulting in
surrounding the seed
patchy
before it
growth
even
and
begins
weak
growing.
seedlings.
Before
But on
sowing,
the
some
right,
gardeners
uniform
use hydrogen
emergence
peroxide
leads
as
to a
part of their
healthy,
seed
robust
preparation
stand.
routine to help start with cleaner seed surfaces. The goal is not to force seeds to grow faster through magic. The goal is to begin with a cleaner starting point. When it works well, the difference is usually subtle rather than dramatic. Instead of every seed sprouting overnight, you may notice seedlings emerging more evenly across the tray. One practical checkpoint comes after the first watering cycle. Look for upright young seedlings with clean stems rather than assuming success the moment seeds are covered. Always follow the product guidance for preparation, and remember that not every species responds the same way. This approach may reduce repeat purchases of dedicated seed disinfectant products for gardeners who routinely start large numbers of seeds. If you've ever watched a perfectly healthy seedling wilt the day after transplanting, you're not alone. Nearly every gardener has experienced it. The question isn't whether transplant shock happens. It's how professionals try to reduce it before the plant falls behind. Leaves may droop for a day or two while roots adjust to their new environment. Many people respond by adding extra fertilizer immediately, but newly disturbed roots often benefit more from stability than from additional feeding. Hydrogen peroxide is sometimes included as part of a careful transplant routine because gardeners are focusing on root zone
There we
conditions,
have it,
not
all
simply leaf
organized
appearance.
and ready for the spring
Watch the newest
seedlings.
leaves over the next several days instead of
A
the oldest
tidy
one.
space makes for a happy
Fresh
gardener.
growth usually tells a more reliable story than leaves that were already damaged before transplanting. Avoid repeated applications simply because a plant still looks stressed after one day. Recovery depends on weather, watering, soil structure, and root health together, not on hydrogen peroxide alone. This is where many gardeners completely change.
As you can
how
see
they
here,
think about
these
hydrogen
seedlings
peroxide.
have completely
It isn't just about
collapsed at the
cleaning.
soil line.
It's about what happens
a classic
around the roots
sign of
after the
damping
solution
off.
begins breaking down.
Compare that
doesn't
to the
mean every
healthy
plant
ones
needs it,
nearby.
and it certainly isn't a replacement
Damping
for
off
healthy soil,
causes the
proper
stem to
watering, or
rot right
good
at the
drainage.
soil line,
But
as you
understanding
can see
the root
here.
zone
The
changes how you
seedling
look at the entire
collapses
garden.
while the surrounding
Once you
plants remain
realize many
healthy and
problems begin
vibrant.
below the surface, the next question isn't about roots anymore. It's about everything else in the garden that can quietly carry problems from one season to the next. Healthy plants can still struggle if the environment around them slowly becomes dirtier every growing season. That's why professional growers spend almost as much time managing the growing space as they do managing the plants. Soil, trays, pots, tools, and even water systems can quietly carry problems from one planting to the next. The first example starts with soil fungus. When seedlings suddenly collapse at the soil line or young plants fail even though watering seems correct, many gardeners blame poor seed quality. Sometimes the growing medium is carrying more disease pressure than expected. Hydrogen peroxide may be used as part of an overall sanitation routine, but it is not a substitute for replacing heavily contaminated soil or correcting poor drainage. One useful sign to watch is what happens after the next watering cycle. If new seedlings continue standing upright instead of folding over near the base, conditions may be improving. If problems spread through the tray despite sanitation efforts, the growing medium itself may need replacing. In situations like this, gardeners may avoid reaching immediately for a dedicated damping off treatment while still addressing the underlying conditions. Now move one step away from the soil. Look at the trays holding those seedlings. That's where many problems quietly begin again. Plastic trays can look perfectly clean after emptying them, yet tiny cracks and corners may still hold old organic residue. Instead of simply rinsing with water, many growers include a sanitation step before filling trays again. What you're looking for is the next batch beginning with a cleaner surface, instead of carrying leftovers from the previous crop. Rinse thoroughly after cleaning and allow trays to dry before reuse. This simple habit may reduce the need for separate tray sanitizing products, especially for gardeners who reuse equipment every season. The container may look clean. Professional growers know appearance can be misleading. A beautiful new seedling placed into a dirty container starts with a disadvantage before roots even touch fresh soil. Hydrogen peroxide is sometimes used to help prepare containers before planting, especially after removing old roots and soil. First, remove all visible debris, then clean. Hydrogen peroxide should never replace physical cleaning because dried organic matter limits the effectiveness of any sanitation step. A clean container, dry before planting, provides a much better starting point than relying
Healthy
on chemicals alone.
compost should be
That
crumbly
can reduce
and
repeat
moist,
purchases
like a
of
wrung-out
specialized
spilt
container
sponge.
disinfectants without skipping the basic cleaning process. Here's one place almost nobody expects hydrogen peroxide to appear: the compost pile. A compost pile should smell earthy. When strong, sour or rotten odors begin developing, many people assume they simply have to live with it until decomposition finishes. In reality, unpleasant smells often signal that the balance inside the pile needs attention. Hydrogen peroxide is sometimes used carefully around compost-related maintenance, but it cannot fix an unhealthy compost system by itself. If the pile is soaked, tightly compacted, or lacking airflow, no bottle will solve those problems. Turning the pile, balancing green and brown materials, and restoring airflow remain the priority. Watch for odor changes over the following days, rather than expecting an instant transformation. In some cases, this approach may delay the need for commercial odor control products. The next use doesn't involve soil at all.
It happens inside the water.
That's why hydroponic growers think about peroxide differently from traditional gardeners. Closed hydroponic systems operate very differently from garden beds. Water circulates continuously, so cleanliness becomes even more important. The goal is not simply clean water, it's maintaining a cleaner growing environment within the system when used appropriately. Always verify compatibility with your specific hydroponic setup and follow the equipment manufacturer's guidance before introducing anything into the reservoir. Instead of staring only
As we
at
can
the
see
water,
in this
watch the
comparison,
roots.
the specialized
Healthy roots
cleaning
often appear
process
lighter in color
effectively
and more
removes
vigorous than
years
roots
of
beginning to
built-up
decline.
grime, restoring
At
the
the same
timber
time,
to its
remember
natural
that poor
state.
temperatures, inadequate oxygenation, or nutrient imbalance cannot be corrected by hydrogen peroxide alone. Used correctly, it may reduce reliance on separate water system cleaning products, but it is not a replacement for proper hydroponic management. This may be the easiest use in today's video to recognize without any special knowledge. Green algae gradually coating trays, benches, watering areas, or other damp surfaces doesn't usually appear overnight. It builds slowly until surfaces become slippery or stained. Hydrogen peroxide is sometimes used as part of cleaning these areas because removing algae isn't only about appearance. Cleaner surfaces can make routine maintenance easier and reduce repeated scrubbing. Start by removing loose debris, apply only where appropriate, then check the surface again after it dries. If algae quickly returns, excess moisture or constant shade may be the real issue that needs correcting. The same inexpensive bottle keeps showing up in completely different situations, not because every problem is identical, but because experienced growers focus on maintaining the entire growing environment. And once you stop looking at individual pots and begin looking at the whole garden as one connected system, hydrogen peroxide becomes useful in ways most gardeners never consider. By now you've probably noticed something interesting. None of the previous hacks depended on a special plant variety or an expensive piece of equipment. They all followed the same idea. Instead of reacting after problems appear, improve the environment that plants grow in. Home gardeners often treat one sick plant at a time. Professionals pay attention to the entire growing system. The first place that mindset becomes obvious is inside a greenhouse. Even a well-managed greenhouse creates warm, humid conditions that help plants grow quickly. Unfortunately, those same conditions can also encourage unwanted organisms if basic sanitation is ignored. Professional growers rarely wait until every bench, tray, or walkway looks dirty before cleaning. Instead, sanitation becomes part of the routine. Hydrogen peroxide is sometimes included in that routine because it can help clean certain hard surfaces when used according to the product directions. The important lesson isn't the product itself, it's the schedule. That same principle applies even if your greenhouse is nothing more than a few shelves on a covered patio. Most gardeners fill it, empty it, and refill it for years without thinking about what remains inside. Small amounts of organic residue can gradually build up, especially if fertilizers or organic products are used regularly. Professional growers know that clean water starts with clean equipment. Hydrogen peroxide may be used as part of cleaning watering cans and similar equipment, but only after visible residue has already been removed. Simply pouring a solution into a dirty container doesn't replace proper cleaning. The visible result isn't something dramatic you'll notice immediately. Instead, you're creating a cleaner starting point every time you water your plants. The same thinking extends to hand tools. Pruners, knives, scissors,
Organization
and propagation
is
tools
key
move from
to a
one
successful
plant to another all day
garden.
long. Every cut
Keeping your
creates an
tools
opportunity to
clean
transfer
and in their
material between
place
plants
saves
if
time
equipment
in the
isn't
long
maintained
run.
properly. Instead of viewing tool cleaning as something you do only after disease appears, experienced growers often build it into the workflow itself. Clean before beginning. Clean between sensitive jobs when appropriate. Clean again before storage. Hydrogen peroxide isn't solving a disease. It's helping support a cleaner work process. That's a completely different way of thinking. Look at raised beds. At the end of a growing season, it's tempting to remove the plants and immediately begin planning the next crop. Professionals usually spend time preparing the growing space before the next planting cycle begins. Old roots, dead leaves, broken stems, and leftover debris don't simply disappear because a new season starts. Removing that material first is often more
The
valuable
before
than applying
shot
any
shows
cleaning
old
product afterward.
weeds and depleted
Hydrogen
soil.
peroxide, when used
The
appropriately,
after
becomes
reveals a
one
clean,
part of a
nourished
larger
bed
reset process,
ready for
not the
planting.
entire process itself. Potting benches, propagation tables, worktops, storage shelves. These areas rarely receive much attention because no plants are growing directly on them. Yet they're constantly exposed to soil, water, containers, and garden tools. Professional growers understand that every clean surface reduces opportunities for problems to spread through routine work. This is where the biggest mental shift in today's video happens. Most people ask, how do I fix this plant? Professionals ask, how do I improve the system so fewer plants develop the problem in the first place? That single change in perspective explains why the same inexpensive bottle keeps appearing in commercial growing operations year after year. It's not being used because it's magical. It's being used because it fits into a repeatable maintenance routine. And before you decide exactly where hydrogen peroxide belongs in your own routine, there's one more question worth answering. Why have experienced growers continued using such an inexpensive product when countless specialty products are available today? At this point, you might be wondering something completely reasonable. If hydrogen peroxide can be used in so many different gardening situations, why isn't everyone talking about it? Professional growers don't rely on hydrogen peroxide because they believe it's a miracle product. They continue using it because it fits into a larger management system built on sanitation, observation, and consistency. Walk through a commercial greenhouse and you'll notice something interesting. Successful operations rarely depend on a single product to solve every problem. Instead, they combine clean equipment, good airflow, proper watering, healthy growing media, and regular inspection into one routine. Hydrogen peroxide is sometimes included in that routine because it supports specific maintenance tasks, not because it replaces the rest of the system. Many home gardeners search for one product that fixes every issue. Professional growers build conditions where fewer issues develop in the first place. This also explains why results vary so much from one gardener to another. One person follows the dilution instructions, applies the product only when appropriate, and combines it with good gardening practices. Another pours a stronger mixture into the soil, repeats applications too often, ignores drainage problems, and expects immediate results. Both people say they used hydrogen peroxide. Only one actually used it correctly. One of the most common reasons people become disappointed is assuming that a stronger solution must work better. In reality, excessive concentrations can damage sensitive plant tissues or
Healthy
interfere with normal
compost
root
should be
development instead of
crumbly
helping
and
it.
moist, like a
More is
wrung-out
not
spilt
automatically
sponge.
better. Correct dilution is usually more important than aggressive application. Timing matters just as much. Using hydrogen peroxide after a problem has become severe is very different from using it as part of routine maintenance or during the early stages of an issue. Experienced growers pay close attention to timing because prevention and early intervention are often easier than trying to reverse extensive damage later. Instead of asking, "Did the product work?" they ask, "What changed after I used it?" Did new roots appear healthy? Are seedlings standing more uniformly? Are containers cleaner before planting? Is algae returning more slowly? These visible changes provide better feedback than relying on assumptions. Hydrogen peroxide should also never become an excuse to ignore the fundamentals. Poor drainage, overcrowded plants, contaminated growing media, and inconsistent watering cannot be solved simply by adding another product. Healthy gardening systems are built on good practices first, with individual products supporting those practices, not replacing them. That's why this inexpensive bottle continues to earn a place in professional growing operations. Not because it's magical and not because it works everywhere, but because when used correctly, at the right concentration and at the right time, it becomes one reliable tool inside a much larger system. It's how to use one bottle safely across all of these different situations without having to memorize 20 separate recipes. That's exactly what we'll simplify next. After 20 different examples, it's easy to come away with the impression that you need a different recipe for every gardening task. In reality,
As we
the
can
biggest
see
lesson
in this
isn't
comparison,
memorizing 20
the
separate
specialized
mixtures.
cleaning
It's
process
understanding a simple
effectively
process.
removes years of
Identify the
built-up
job,
grime,
choose
restoring
the
the
correct
timber
dilution
to its
from the
natural
product
state.
guidance, apply it only where appropriate, and then observe the results before deciding whether anything else is needed. Instead of keeping a shelf full of products with overlapping purposes, they begin by asking a few practical questions. Is this a root zone issue? Am I cleaning equipment or growing surfaces? Am I preparing containers before planting? Am I maintaining a hydroponic system? Or am I simply trying to improve sanitation as part of regular maintenance? Once the purpose is clear, the correct dilution and application method become much easier to choose. Just as important, they know when not to use hydrogen peroxide. It isn't a substitute for improving drainage, replacing contaminated growing media, correcting watering habits, or solving nutritional deficiencies. Those problems require their own solutions. Professional growers rarely wait until something looks terrible before acting. Cleaning tools between jobs, preparing containers before planting, inspecting the root zone, and maintaining equipment on a schedule are all small tasks that prevent larger problems from developing. Not that it performs miracles, not that it replaces every specialized gardening product, but that one product can support many different maintenance jobs when used correctly, at the proper concentration, and for the right purpose. So instead of remembering 20 unrelated hacks, remember one guiding principle. Use hydrogen peroxide to support a healthy growing environment, not to compensate for an unhealthy one. If you build good gardening habits first, this simple brown bottle becomes a versatile tool rather than a last-minute rescue. And that's why, after all these years, professional growers still keep one within easy reach, not because it's the only answer, but because it continues to earn its place as one dependable part of a complete gardening system. It was about learning to look at everyday garden products the way experienced growers do. Instead of asking, what product should I buy next? Ask, do I already have a simple tool that can solve this problem when it's used correctly? That small change in thinking can save money, reduce clutter, and help you build a more consistent gardening routine over time. If one of these 20 uses surprised you, you'll probably enjoy what's coming next. There are several other inexpensive household products that professional gardeners continue to use in ways most people never consider, and some of them are even more unexpected than hydrogen peroxide. The bottle isn't the secret. Understanding when, where, and why to use it is.